Leo Wright wiped down the counter of his small coffee shop for the third time that evening. The rain outside had kept most customers away, leaving him alone with the hiss of the espresso machine and the soft jazz playing through the speakers. He did not mind the quiet. After 5 years of running Brew Haven, he had learned to appreciate these peaceful moments. The bell above the door chimed. Leo looked up and saw a figure step inside, rain dripping from a long dark coat. The man was tall, unusually so, and moved with a strange grace that made Leo pause mid-wipe. There was something different about this customer, though Leo could not quite name what it was. "Welcome," Leo called out, setting down his cloth. "Coming out of that rain. Sit anywhere you like." The stranger stood in the doorway for a long moment, as if deciding whether to stay or leave. Finally, he moved toward the corner table, the one furthest from the windows. His steps were careful and deliberate. Leo noticed the way the man's amber eyes scanned the small shop, taking in every detail. Leo grabbed a menu and walked over. Up close, he could see the exhaustion on the stranger's face. It was a look Leo recognized well. He had seen it in his own mirror during the worst days of his divorce. This was someone carrying a heavy burden. "First time here?" Leo asked with a friendly smile. "First time anywhere like this," the man replied. His voice was deep and smooth with an accent Leo could not place. It sounded almost musical. "I'm Leo. I own this place. What can I get you?" The stranger stared at the menu as if he had never seen one before. His amber eyes moved across the words slowly. "I am uncertain. What would you suggest?" Leo tilted his head, studying the man. "You look like you've had a rough day. Let me make you something special. First cup is free." The stranger's eyes widened slightly. "Free? Without payment?" "Sure. Everyone needs a little kindness sometimes." Leo smiled. "What's your name?" "Thane," the man said after a brief pause. "My name is Thane." "Nice to meet you, Thane. Give me a few minutes." Leo returned to his station and began preparing a honey lavender latte. He had created the recipe himself, something soothing and a bit different from the usual orders. As the milk steamed, he glanced at Thane in the reflection of the machine. The man sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table, staring at nothing. There was a loneliness in that stillness that made Leo's chest tighten. When the drink was ready, Leo brought it over with a small cookie on the side. "Here you go. It's a little sweet, but I find that helps on hard days." Thane picked up the cup with both hands and breathed in the steam. When he took the first sip, his expression changed. The exhaustion seemed to lift just slightly, replaced by something that looked like surprise. "This is remarkable," Thane said quietly. "I have never tasted anything quite like it." Leo chuckled and pulled out the chair across from him. "Mind if I sit? It's pretty dead tonight anyway." Thane gestured to the chair. "Please." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Leo watched the rain streak down the windows while Thane took another slow sip of his drink. "So what brings you to Portland?" Leo asked. "Business? Vacation?" "Neither," Thane said. "I suppose I am searching for something." "Aren't we all?" Leo said with a soft laugh. "What are you searching for?" Thane was quiet for a long time. His fingers traced the rim of the cup. "Peace perhaps. A moment where I am not expected to be anything other than myself." Leo nodded slowly. "I get that. Sometimes the expectations people put on us can feel like chains." "Chains?" Thane repeated as if testing the word. "Yes, that is accurate." "Well, no expectations here," Leo said. "Just coffee and conversation if you want it. Or silence if you prefer." Thane looked at him, then really looked at him, and Leo felt an odd sensation as if those amber eyes could see right through him. "Why would you offer kindness to a stranger? What do you gain from it?" The question caught Leo off guard. "I don't know that I need to gain anything. You look like you could use a friend even if just for an hour. Life is hard enough without going through it alone." "You do not know me," Thane said. "I could be dangerous." Leo shrugged. "My danger radar is pretty good after years in customer service. You don't ping it. You just look tired." Thane set down his cup carefully. "I have met thousands of beings across countless worlds, and not one has ever simply offered me kindness without wanting something in return." Leo raised an eyebrow. "Thousands of beings? You travel a lot for work?" "Something like that," Thane said, and there was a hint of something in his voice. "Sadness maybe. I have responsibilities that take me far from any place I might call home." "Sounds lonely," Leo said. "It is." The admission seemed to surprise Thane himself. "It has been lonely for longer than I care to remember." They talked for over an hour. Leo shared stories about running the coffee shop, about the interesting customers who came through, about his dreams of maybe expanding one day or writing a book. Thane listened with an intensity that made Leo feel truly heard, something he had not experienced in a long time. When Leo asked about Thane's life, the answers were vague but fascinating. Thane spoke of distant places, of complex problems that needed solving, of the weight of decisions that affected many people. Leo assumed he was some kind of international consultant or diplomat. The way Thane described his work made it sound both important and isolating. "You should come back tomorrow," Leo said as he stood to make himself a cup of tea. "If you want, I mean. No pressure." "I would like that," Thane said, and there was genuine warmth in his voice. "I would like that very much." When Thane finally left that night, Leo watched him disappear into the rain. There was something mysterious about the man, certainly, but also something deeply human in his loneliness. Leo had always believed that everyone deserved kindness, no matter who they were or where they came from. He had no idea that the person he had just befriended was the most powerful being in the known galaxy. He did not know that Thane was not even human, or that the amber eyes and tall frame were merely a holographic disguise hiding a form that would terrify most beings. He simply knew that he had made a connection with someone who needed it. And for Thane, Emperor of 10,000 worlds, ruler of countless species, that simple act of kindness over a cup of coffee had cracked open something in his heart that had been closed for 300 years. Thane returned the next evening and the evening after that, and soon his visits became as regular as the sunrise. Every day at 6 o'clock, the bell would chime and Leo would look up to see the tall figure entering his shop. They had fallen into an easy rhythm like old friends who had known each other for years rather than weeks. On the fifth visit, Leo brought out his old chess set. The wooden pieces were worn smooth from years of use, a gift from his grandfather. He set it up on Thane's usual corner table without asking. "Do you play?" Leo asked. Thane looked at the board with curiosity. "I have played games of strategy but never this one. Will you teach me?" Leo spent that evening explaining the rules. Thane learned with remarkable speed, asking thoughtful questions about why each piece moved as it did. By the end of the night he was already giving Leo a challenge. "You learn fast," Leo said, moving his knight to safety. "I have had much practice at understanding patterns," Thane replied. He studied the board with intense focus. "Though I confess I find this more enjoyable than the strategic games I usually play. The stakes are pleasantly low." "It's just a game," Leo agreed. "Nobody gets hurt if you lose." Thane looked up sharply. What a luxury that must be. Over the following weeks, their friendship deepened. Leo introduced Thane to old movies, starting with classic westerns and film noir. They would sit in the shop after closing, watching films on Leo's laptop while sharing a pot of tea. Thane seemed fascinated by everything, asking questions about human culture and customs that sometimes struck Leo as oddly basic. "Why do humans shake hands when greeting?" Thane asked one evening. Leo paused the movie. "To show we're not carrying weapons, I think. It's a trust thing. Started way back in history." "A gesture of peace," Thane said thoughtfully. "How simple. How elegant. You say that like your people do something different." Thane smiled slightly. "Where I come from, greetings are far more formal. More about displaying status than building trust." "Sounds exhausting," Leo said. "It is." Leo began to notice small things about Thane. The way he sometimes forgot to blink for long stretches. How he never seemed to get cold even on chilly evenings. The odd way he would tilt his head when listening as if hearing something beyond the normal range. But Leo chalked it up to Thane being foreign from some culture he was unfamiliar with. One rainy Tuesday, Leo made an offhand comment while preparing Thane's usual drink. "Might be one of the last times I make this for you." Thane's head snapped up. "What? Are you going somewhere?" "Not by choice." Leo sighed and leaned against the counter. "The shop's bleeding money. Rent went up again and I'm not getting enough customers to cover it. My landlord gave me until the end of next month." "That cannot happen," Thane said, and there was an edge to his voice that Leo had never heard before. "It's okay," Leo said, though his smile was sad. "I knew it was a long shot. Small businesses fail all the time. I'll figure something out." "You have created something meaningful here," Thane said firmly. "A place of refuge. That has value beyond currency. Try telling that to my landlord." Leo brought over the coffee and sat down. "But thanks. It means a lot that you think so." They played chess in heavy silence that night. Thane seemed distracted, making unusual mistakes. When he left, he clasped Leo's hand in both of his own. "Do not give up hope," Thane said. "Fortune can change quickly." Leo thought it was just a kind sentiment. He had no idea that the moment Thane left the shop, He activated a communication device hidden in his coat and gave a series of quiet orders. 3 days later, a food blogger with 500,000 followers stumbled into Brew Haven by accident, caught in a sudden rainstorm. She posted about Leo's honey lavender latte, calling it the best coffee in Portland. The post went viral. By the end of the week, Leo had a line out the door. He had to hire 2 part-time workers just to keep up. A local magazine reached out for an interview. A coffee distributor offered him a partnership deal that would cut his supply costs in half. "I don't understand it," Leo said to Thane one evening, shaking his head in disbelief. "It's like I won the lottery without buying a ticket." "Perhaps the universe simply recognized quality," Thane said smoothly. "Good things should be rewarded." "I guess so. It's just weird timing, you know? Right when I needed it most." Thane said nothing, focusing intently on the chessboard. As the weeks passed, Leo noticed other small coincidences. The landlord suddenly became flexible on rent, claiming he had received an anonymous investment in the building. A broken espresso machine that Leo could not afford to replace was mysteriously fixed overnight by a technician who refused payment, saying it had already been covered. Every time Leo mentioned a problem, it seemed to solve itself within days. "You're my good luck charm," Leo joked one evening. "Everything started getting better right after I met you." Thane's expression was unreadable. "I am glad your fortunes have improved." Their conversations grew deeper as trust built between them. Leo shared his fears about never being good enough, about his failed marriage, about the loneliness of running a business alone. Thane listened with a patience that felt almost ancient. In return, Thane spoke carefully about his own isolation. "I am surrounded by people constantly," he said one night. "Yet I have not had a genuine conversation in decades. Everyone tells me what they think I want to hear. No one simply speaks to me as you do." "That sounds awful," Leo said. "What kind of work do you do that's like that?" "I hold a position of significant authority," Thane said after a pause. "People fear me more than they respect me. I have power, but I have no friends." "Had no friends?" Leo corrected with a smile. "You've got one now." Thane looked at him for a long moment. "Yes, I suppose I do." What Leo did not know was that every night after leaving the coffee shop, Thane would return to his ship hidden in orbit. He would sit in his throne room, surrounded by advisors and generals, making decisions that affected billions of lives. And he would think about the small coffee shop, the simple kindness, and the one person in the entire galaxy who treated him like he was just another person. For the first time in 3 centuries, Emperor Thane of the Draconian Empire had something to look forward to. Not a conquest or a treaty, but a game of chess and a cup of coffee with the only real friend he had ever known. It happened on a Thursday afternoon during the lunch rush. Leo was behind the counter making drinks for a line of customers when the front window exploded inward. Not shattered, but vaporized, turning to sparkling dust that hung in the air for a moment before settling. 3 figures stepped through the opening. They were massive, easily 7 feet tall, wearing armor that seemed to be made of liquid metal. The armor shifted and flowed across their bodies like living mercury. Their faces were hidden behind helmets that glowed with a soft blue light. The coffee shop went silent. A woman dropped her cup. A man grabbed his child and backed toward the rear exit. "Emperor Thane," the center figure spoke in a voice that boomed through the shop. "You must return immediately. The Council of 12 has convened an emergency session. War is imminent." Leo froze, his hand still on the espresso machine. He looked toward the corner table where Thane sat with his usual cup of coffee and chess set. Thane had gone completely still, his face pale. "I told you not to find me," Thane said quietly. "My lord, we had no choice. The Krillian Empire has mobilized its fleets. They demand your presence for negotiations, or they will consider it an act of war." Leo stepped out from behind the counter, his heart pounding. "What is this? What are you talking about? Emperor?" Thane closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were glowing amber, bright enough to cast light across the table. "Leo, I can explain." "The Emperor does not need to explain himself to a primitive," the armored figure said sharply. "My lord, your disguise is failing. We must leave now." And then Leo saw it. Thane's form began to flicker, like a broken television signal. For a moment, Leo could see through the image of the man he had come to know as his friend. Beneath the hologram was something else entirely. Scales. Massive scales that shimmered like polished obsidian. A form that was far larger than human, coiled and compressed by the holographic projection. Wings folded tight against a serpentine body. A face that was both terrible and beautiful, with eyes that burned like small suns. A dragon. Thane was a dragon. The other customers screamed and fled through the back door. Within seconds, Leo stood alone in his shop with 3 armored aliens and a being he no longer recognized. "You're not human," Leo said, and his voice sounded distant to his own ears. "No," Thane said. The hologram steadied slightly, but Leo could still see the truth beneath it now. "I am not." "My lord, please," the armored figure pressed. "Millions of lives hang in the balance." "Give me one moment," Thane commanded, and the force in his voice made the entire building shake. The armored figures immediately stepped back, their heads bowed. Thane stood slowly and approached Leo. Even with the hologram he seemed larger now, more powerful. The air around him crackled with barely contained energy. "I am Emperor Thane Vex of the Draconian Empire," he said. "I rule 10,000 worlds across this galaxy. I command fleets that could reduce your planet to ash in minutes. I have lived for over 300 years, and I have never known defeat in battle." Leo's hands trembled. He gripped the counter to steady himself. "Then what were you doing here? Why the disguise? Why pretend to be my friend?" "I was not pretending," Thane said, and there was pain in his voice. "That is the one thing I have never pretended about. You lied to me. About everything. I lied about what I am. Not about who I am." Thane moved closer. "For 3 centuries, Leo, I have been surrounded by beings who worship me or fear me. Every word spoken in my presence is calculated, measured, designed to please or manipulate me. I have advisors and generals and servants beyond counting, but I have never had a friend." "So you used me," Leo said, anger rising through his shock. "You thought it would be fun to play pretend with a human who didn't know better?" "No." Thane's hologram flickered again, and for a moment his true face showed through, massive and alien but somehow still recognizable. "Still Thane. I came to Earth because it is one of the few worlds in my empire that does not know of me. I wanted, just once, to be treated as a person rather than a god or a monster. I wanted someone to speak to me honestly. My lord, we have perhaps 3 minutes before the Krillian ambassador considers your absence an insult," one of the armored figures warned. Thane ignored him. "When you offered me that first cup of coffee, when you asked for nothing in return, I almost left. I thought it was a trick. But it was not. You were simply kind because kindness is who you are. And I kept coming back because for the first time in my entire existence, someone saw me as just Thane." Leo's mind raced. He thought about all their conversations, all the chess games, all the late nights watching old movies. The good fortune. My business suddenly thriving. "That was you, wasn't it?" "Yes," Thane admitted. "I could not bear to see you lose this place. It would have been within my power to help, so I did. You should have asked me first. Would you have accepted if you knew the truth?" Leo opened his mouth and then closed it. He did not know the answer. 2 minutes, my lord," the guard said urgently. Leo looked at this being, this emperor of 10,000 worlds who could destroy planets with a thought. And beneath all the power and the scales and the terrible majesty, he tried to see his friend. "Was any of it real?" Leo asked quietly. "Our friendship. The conversations. Did any of it mean anything to you?" Thane's hologram fell away completely. His true form filled the small coffee shop, magnificent and terrifying. His scales caught the afternoon light like 1,000 black mirrors. His wings, even folded, brushed against the ceiling. And his eyes, those burning amber eyes, were fixed on Leo with an intensity that should have been frightening but somehow was not. "In 300 years, Thane said, and his voice resonated like distant thunder, "I have signed treaties that ended wars, made decisions that saved billions of lives and accumulated more power than any being in known history. And none of it, Leo, none of it has meant more to me than the friendship you offered freely over coffee and chess." Leo felt tears sting his eyes. "You should have told me. Would you have believed me?" "Probably not," Leo admitted with a shaky laugh. "1 minute, Emperor," the guard said. Thane looked at his guards, then back at Leo. "I must go. Lives depend on my presence. But I want you to know that every moment in this coffee shop was the most genuine time of my entire existence. You gave me something I had forgotten even existed." "What's that?" Leo asked. "Hope," Thane said simply. "Hope that connection is still possible even for someone like me." The Emperor turned toward his guards, his massive form somehow graceful despite the confined space. Then he paused and looked back. "Would you?" Thane hesitated, and Leo realized with shock that this powerful being was nervous. "Would you want me to return? After I deal with this crisis? I would understand if you did not." Leo thought about everything he had just learned. About the lies and the truth tangled together. About the being who had pretended to be human just to experience friendship. About all the conversations that had meant something real to both of them. Yeah, Leo said, and he found himself smiling despite everything. Yeah, Thane. Come back. We still have a chess game to finish. For the first time since the guards had arrived, Thane smiled. It was a dragon's smile, full of too many teeth, but it was genuine. Thank you, my friend, he said. Then he and his guards vanished in a flash of light that left afterimages dancing in Leo's vision. The coffee shop fell silent except for the soft hiss of the espresso machine, still running as if nothing had changed. Leo stood alone among the scattered tables and broken window, and wondered how he was going to explain this to his insurance company. The light faded and Leo found himself standing on polished black metal that reflected his stunned face. He blinked hard, trying to process what had just happened. One moment he had been in his coffee shop, the next he was somewhere else entirely. What did you do? Thane's voice thundered through the massive chamber. I ordered you to leave the human behind. Leo looked around. They were in what could only be described as a throne room, though it was unlike anything from Earth's history. The walls curved upward into darkness, covered in symbols that seemed to move and shift. Dozens of beings in armor stood at attention around the perimeter, none of them human-shaped. Through a massive window, Leo could see stars and the curve of a planet below. He was in space. The human followed us through the transport beam, my lord, one of the guards said, his voice tight with fear. We did not realize until it was too late. I grabbed onto your armor, Leo said, stepping forward on shaky legs. I wasn't going to let you face this alone. Every being in the room turned to stare at him. The silence was thick enough to cut. Thane's massive form moved toward Leo, scales rippling with each step. You foolish, brave, impossible human. You have no idea what you have done. This place is not safe for your kind. Friends don't abandon friends when things get hard, Leo said, trying to keep his voice steady despite his racing heart. You taught me that matters even across species. So here I am. A small alien with blue skin and 6 arms approached nervously. My lord, the ambassadors are waiting in the negotiation chamber. The Krillian representative has already threatened to leave twice. Give me a moment, Thane said. My lord, we do not have moments, the blue alien pressed. If negotiations fail, both the Krillian Empire and the Morphid Collective will interpret it as weakness. War will be inevitable. Thane made a low rumbling sound that Leo felt in his chest. Very well. Leo, you will stay here under guard where it is safe. No, Leo said firmly. I came with you. Let me help. You cannot possibly help with this. These are matters of interstellar politics, of complex alliances centuries in the making. Then explain it to me on the way, Leo said. You've got maybe 5 minutes before this meeting, right? Give me the quick version. Thane stared at him for a long moment, then made a gesture with one massive claw. Walk with me. They moved through corridors of dark metal, with Leo jogging to keep up with Thane's much longer stride. Guards followed at a respectful distance, far enough back that they could not hear the conversation. The Krillian Empire and the Morphid Collective both claim ownership of a star system on their shared border, Thane explained. The system contains resources both need desperately. They have brought their dispute to me as emperor, expecting me to rule in favor of one or the other. And you rule through fear, Leo said, remembering what he had observed. Everyone here is terrified of you. Fear ensures obedience. Obedience ensures order. But not loyalty, Leo said. Not real loyalty. You told me yourself that nobody speaks honestly to you. How can you make good decisions if everyone is too scared to tell you the truth? Thane's pace slowed. What would you suggest? That I ask nicely and hope for compliance. I'd suggest you try listening instead of just commanding. Back in the shop you listened to me. Really listened. Did that make you weaker? That was different. What? Because I'm human and therefore don't matter? Thane stopped walking. Because you did not fear me. And it was the most refreshing thing I have experienced in 300 years. They reached a set of massive doors. Through them, Leo could hear raised voices in languages he did not understand. Let me sit in on this meeting, Leo said. Just to observe. Maybe a fresh perspective helps. This is not a game of chess, Leo. I know. But you said I helped you see things differently. Maybe I can do that now when it really matters. Thane considered this, his amber eyes studying Leo's face. Finally he nodded. Very well. But you will not speak unless I permit it. These are dangerous beings who would think nothing of killing you for sport. The doors opened and they entered the negotiation chamber. It was a circular room with a round table at its center. On one side sat a being that looked like a crystalline spider, its body refracting light into rainbow patterns. On the other side was something that resembled a floating mass of tentacles surrounding a single glowing eye. Both beings fell silent when Thane entered. Their posture changed immediately, becoming smaller, more submissive. Leo recognized the body language even across species. They were afraid. Thane took his seat at the head of the table, so large that the chair seemed more like a throne. He gestured for Leo to stand beside him. The two ambassadors stared at the human with obvious confusion. "Let us begin," Thane said. "Present your cases." For the next 20 minutes, Leo listened as both ambassadors made their arguments through translation devices. The Krillian representative spoke of historical claims and ancient treaties. The Morphid ambassador countered with geological surveys and resource allocation models. Both presented compelling cases. Both clearly expected Thane to simply choose a side and enforce his will. Leo watched Thane's face throughout. He saw the Emperor's frustration growing, saw the way his claws tapped against the table in irritation. This was a ruler who solved problems through power, being asked to navigate a situation where power alone would not work. Whatever he decided, one side would feel cheated and resentful. "Enough," Thane finally said, and both ambassadors fell silent immediately. "I will consider your arguments and render judgment within the hour." "My lord," Leo said quietly, "may I speak with you privately for a moment?" Every eye in the room turned to stare at this small human who dared interrupt the Emperor. Thane's expression was unreadable. "You overstep," the Krillian ambassador hissed. "5 minutes," Thane said, standing. "Leo with me." They stepped into an antechamber. The moment the door closed, Thane turned to him. "This had better be important." "You're about to make an enemy no matter what you choose," Leo said. "But what if you don't have to choose? The system cannot belong to both parties." "No, but what if it belongs to neither? What if you propose something they haven't considered?" "Explain." Leo took a breath. "Back on Earth, when two kids are fighting over a toy, sometimes the solution isn't to give it to one of them. You find a way for them to share it, or you introduce something new that makes the fight pointless. What do both sides actually need from this system? Resources, energy sources, and rare minerals. Okay, so what if you propose a joint operation? Both sides work the system together, split the resources based on some fair formula. Neither side wins, but neither side loses either." Thane's eyes narrowed. "They would never agree. They hate each other. Do they? Or do they just think they're supposed to hate each other because of old conflicts?" "Leo, you do not understand the complexity of interstellar politics." "You're right, I don't. But I understand people. Or, well, beings. And I know that most conflicts come down to fear and pride. Both those ambassadors are scared you'll rule against them, and both are too proud to look weak by compromising. But if the compromise comes from you, if you frame it as your command rather than their weakness, maybe that changes things." Thane was quiet for a long moment. "Your species has no telepathy, no hive mind, no genetic memory. You are isolated individuals who must learn to cooperate purely through communication and empathy." "I guess so, yeah. That seems impossibly difficult." "It is," Leo admitted. "We mess it up all the time. But when we get it right, when we actually listen to each other and find common ground, it's pretty amazing." Thane's massive head tilted, considering. "You truly believe this could work?" "I think it's worth trying. What's the worst that happens? They say no and you're back to making a ruling anyway. But if it works, you've solved the problem without making an enemy." They returned to the negotiation chamber. Thane settled back into his throne, and Leo noticed his posture was different. Less rigid. Less like a judge about to deliver a sentence. "I have considered both your positions," Thane began. "And I have concluded that you are both correct." The ambassadors looked at each other in confusion. "The system in dispute has value to both your peoples. To deny either of you would be unjust. Therefore I propose a joint venture. You will establish a shared mining operation with resources split 60-40 based on your respective contributions to the extraction infrastructure. You will work together under imperial oversight." "Work with them?" the Krillian ambassador sputtered. "Impossible. Are you refusing an imperial decree?" Thane's voice dropped to a dangerous rumble, and the temperature in the room seemed to fall several degrees. "No, my lord," the ambassador said quickly. "But surely—" "The Morphids have superior drilling technology," Thane continued. "The Krillians have better transport ships. Together, you can extract resources more efficiently than either could alone. This is not a suggestion. This is my command. You will make it work, or I will grant the system to a third party and you will both receive nothing." The Morphid ambassador's tentacles writhed nervously. And if we succeed in this cooperation? Then perhaps, Thane said, and Leo heard a new tone in his voice, something almost gentle. You will find that your peoples have more in common than you thought. Resources are not the only thing worth sharing. Knowledge, culture, innovation, all these have value too. The two ambassadors looked at each other. Really looked, perhaps for the first time. After a long moment, the Krillian bowed its crystalline head. We will make it work, Emperor. As you command, the Morphid agreed. After the ambassadors left, Thane sat quietly in his throne. Leo stood beside him, waiting. That was either brilliant or catastrophically naive, Thane finally said. Could be both, Leo admitted. But at least nobody's starting a war today. Thane's massive head turned toward him. You have given me much to think about, small human. Perhaps fear is not the only way to maintain an empire. It's definitely not the only way to keep friends, Leo said with a small smile. No, Thane agreed. It is not. 6 months had passed since Leo first learned the truth about his friend. In that time, the galaxy had changed in ways that left diplomats and historians struggling to understand what was happening. Emperor Thane had done the unthinkable. He had listened. The first reform came within weeks of the Krillian Morphid agreement. Thane announced the creation of the Galactic Council, a body where representatives from every world in the Empire could bring concerns directly to the Imperial throne. Not demands, not requests for favor, but honest concerns about how they were governed. The announcement shocked every corner of the Empire. For 300 years, Thane had ruled with absolute authority. His word was law, his decisions final. The idea that he would willingly listen to the voices of common citizens seemed impossible. They think I have gone mad, Thane said one evening, sitting in his usual corner of the coffee shop. He was back in his holographic disguise, though Leo could now see through it easily. Once you knew what to look for, the shimmer was obvious. Have you? Leo asked, bringing over 2 cups of coffee. Perhaps. I certainly feel mad. Thane took a sip and sighed. 3 of my generals have resigned. They say I am showing weakness. Are you? I do not know anymore. For centuries, I believed strength meant never questioning, never hesitating, never showing doubt. But you have shown me that sometimes strength means admitting you do not have all the answers. Leo sat down across from him. How did the first council meeting go? Terribly, Thane admitted. Half the representatives were too frightened to speak. The other half could not believe they were allowed to be honest, so they tested boundaries by being deliberately provocative. One suggested I was a tyrant who deserved to be overthrown. What did you do? I thanked her for her honesty and asked her to elaborate on which policies she found most problematic. Thane shook his head. My advisors nearly fainted. But do you know what happened next? What? She told me. In detail. About resource distribution problems in the outer colonies that I had no idea existed because everyone was too afraid to report bad news. Problems that have existed for decades, causing real suffering, and I never knew because fear makes people hide the truth. Leo smiled. And now you know. Now you can fix it. Yes. Now I can fix it. Thane looked out the window at the street beyond. It is strange, Leo. I have more power than any being in the galaxy, yet I feel I have been blind for most of my existence. Seeing only what people wanted me to see. Over the following months, the changes continued. Thane began appearing at council sessions not in his full imperial regalia but in a simpler form, less terrifying. He asked questions instead of issuing commands. He admitted when he did not understand something. The galaxy watched in amazement as their emperor transformed from a distant, fearsome ruler into someone who seemed genuinely interested in the welfare of his subjects. And through it all, Leo remained Thane's unofficial advisor. Not officially appointed, not part of any government structure, just a friend who spoke honestly over coffee and chess. The Terran representative is asking for Earth to receive limited contact status, one of Thane's aides mentioned during a visit to the coffee shop. The aide, a 6-armed being named Kira who had become comfortable enough with Leo to accept his offer of tea, scrolled through a data pad. She argues that humanity's emotional intelligence could be valuable to the Empire. Emotional intelligence? Leo asked, confused. Most species in the galaxy have some form of natural connection, Thane explained. Telepathy, hive minds, pheromone communication. Humans are unusual in that you are completely isolated individuals who must rely entirely on empathy and observation to understand each other. That doesn't sound like an advantage. It is though, Kira said. You have developed negotiation and diplomacy skills that species with natural connection never needed. You can read body language across species barriers. You find common ground where we see only differences. The Krillian-Morphid partnership is thriving, Thane added. They credit the human perspective for helping them see past centuries of mistrust. Other species have taken notice. So Earth joins the galactic community? Leo asked. Limited contact, Thane said. We will establish an embassy, allow cultural exchange, share certain technologies. But we will not overwhelm your planet. Humans need time to adjust to the reality of the wider galaxy. And my coffee shop becomes what, exactly? Grand Central Station for aliens? Thane smiled, his holographic face showing genuine amusement. Actually, yes. If you are willing. That was how Brewhaven became the most unusual diplomatic venue in the galaxy. On any given evening, Leo might serve coffee to a Morphid ambassador, tea to a Krillian trade representative, and hot chocolate to a nervous delegation from a newly contacted world. The coffee shop became known as neutral ground, a place where the normal rules of imperial politics did not apply. Where beings could speak freely without fear of retribution. Where a human barista treated everyone the same, whether they were a powerful diplomat or a low-level clerk. Why do they trust this place so much? Leo asked Thane one quiet Tuesday evening. Because you set the tone, Thane replied. You treat everyone with the same kindness you showed me when I was just a stranger in the rain. They feel safe here. One evening, nearly a year after the revelation, Thane arrived at the coffee shop looking exhausted. He slumped into his usual chair without even greeting Leo, his hologram flickering slightly. Leo brought over coffee without asking. Bad day ruling the galaxy? The worst. 3 different conflicts, 2 economic crises, and a plague outbreak on the Rim worlds. Sometimes I think the old way was easier. Just make a decision and enforce it, consequences be damned. But I would not go back. Even on the hardest days. Thane looked up at Leo. Do you remember that first night when you asked what I was searching for? You said peace. A moment to be yourself. I have been thinking about that. I believed I was searching for escape, for a vacation from responsibility. But that was not it at all. What were you searching for then? Meaning, Thane said quietly. Real meaning. Not the grand meaning of ruling an empire or winning wars or signing treaties. The small meaning. The kind that comes from genuine connection with another being. Leo sat down across from him. And did you find it? I did. In a cup of coffee and a game of chess. In conversations about nothing and everything. In the friendship of someone who saw me as just Thane, not as an emperor. Thane reached across the table and placed one holographic hand over Leo's real one. You taught me that power without connection is just isolation wearing a crown. That's pretty poetic for someone who drinks too much coffee. I learned from the best. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the evening crowd pass by on the street outside. A Krillian diplomat waved through the window. A group of human students walked past, completely unaware that the man in the corner booth ruled 10,000 worlds. You know what I realized? Leo said. When you first came here I thought I was helping you. Giving you a place to escape. But you changed my life just as much. My shop is thriving. I'm part of something bigger than I ever imagined. I have friends from across the galaxy. We helped each other, Thane said. That is what real friendship does. Yeah, Leo agreed. Yeah, it is. A small group of diplomats entered the shop, chattering nervously in a mix of languages. Leo stood to greet them, already pulling out cups and preparing his espresso machine. Thane watched him work, this small human who had somehow changed the course of galactic history through simple kindness. Who had taught an emperor that connection mattered more than control, that listening was stronger than commanding, that the smallest moments often held the greatest meaning. In 300 years of rule, Thane had conquered worlds and built an empire. But his greatest achievement, he now understood, was not any of that. It was learning to be a friend. It was understanding that true power came not from making others fear you, but from building something real with them. The evening progressed. The coffee shop filled with beings from a dozen different worlds, all gathering in this small space that had become a sanctuary of honest connection. Leo moved between tables, offering drinks and conversation with equal ease. Thane remained in his corner, playing chess with a Morphid scholar and feeling more at peace than he had in centuries. Outside, the stars shone down on Earth, a small blue planet that had taught the galaxy's most powerful emperor what it meant to be genuinely alive. And in a coffee shop in Portland, over cups of carefully crafted drinks and games of chess, the foundation of a new kind of empire was being built. One based not on fear but on the simple, revolutionary idea that every being deserved to be heard. Thane looked at his friend Leo, busy and happy behind the counter, and smiled. He had come to Earth searching for escape. What he had found was so much more valuable.